Hello and welcome, friends. My name is Lynn, and this is my flip of the November 2025 Spellbinders Club Kits. As per usual, for my flip videos, I will be making at least one flat, one layered, one interactive, and one pop-up card. Here's a quick look at the 4 cards that I'll be making in this video, and they will be featuring the small die of the month, large die of the month, better press of the month, the glimmer of the month, and the 3D embossing folder of the month, and as well the clear stamp and die of the month. And I do also have left to craft with the stencil of the month, so that will have to come in a separate project and or video. But I really had a lot of fun with this collection, in particular my pop-up card. You'll have to let me know which one of these 4 is your favorite. But without further ado, let's make these. As always, I like to start off with my flat card, and today, actually, I'm beginning to do this more and more, but this card is truly flat. This is a craft color cardstock card base, and it's really thick stuff. It's about 100-pound cover weight, and I'm actually going to stamp directly onto this card front and do some coloring. I was actually quite surprised by the clear stamp of the month this month because a lot of times I feel like we've been getting a lot of sentiments stamps, and then there might be like a single image that goes along with it, but for the most part, a lot of times I turn to the stamp of the month for the sentiments on my cards. And this time, this stamp set is just really super cute. It's got these very chic and stylized ladies, girls, women, and it's just really adorable. They're like, in terms of body image, I don't think they're the best, but because they're like one step up from stick figures, but they're really cute, and I kind of love that. When I think of Spellbinders, they do so many things so well, but I feel like cutesy images I don't see a lot of, and I'm all for it. I love it. It's a super, super adorable stamp of the month, and I love also the sentiments and the mix of typography, also something I really adore. And so it's really fabulous. And if you get it with the coordinating dies, then you have dies that will cut out all 3 images and all 4 sentiments. But then besides that, there are a lot of these like little darling images, like a little puppy dog on its own, a little I guess it's meant to be maybe a little handbag, some cute little hand-drawn hearts. So really super cute, really super adorable. And what I thought I would do is some coloring. Now, I'm a sucker for media supplies, even though I don't really consider myself an artist. But one of the things that I really enjoy working with is these, they're called chalk pastel pencils. And so if you're familiar with, say, like a pan pastel, usually those are in sort of like a different form factor where they're in maybe like a little round container, like a little tin or a little, plastic container. And you would normally dip, a Q-tip, one of those eye makeup sponge applicators, or even your fingers into that little pot and then apply it. And there's different tools that you can use also. But this form factor for pastels in the form of pencils is really nice because you can lay down the color exactly where you want it, and then you can still use whatever your favorite pastel tools are to spread out that color, to mix the color, and it's a really nice, quick way to get some coverage. Now, I still wanted to go back in with more traditional color pencils to add a little bit more detail, maybe clean up the outlines a little bit. So I did stamp this in unicorn white pigment ink, and it's sort of a no line coloring, but not really. You can still see some of that white line, but I still wanted to crisp up those outer edges a little bit, even though I did most of the time color right over the white lines. And the color pencils, like I happen to use Prismacolor pencils, they just work really nicely because you can draw right over the pastels and you can really redefine some of the image that might have been lost. And that's it. I just stamped my sentiment and done. So next up is my layered card. And I actually, when I started making this card, I thought this card would actually be my flat one, because normally my flat cards, because of the way that I define a flat card, it includes one layer of cardstock on top of your card base. And so what I thought I was gonna do was better press out this very chic young lady who is kind of drinking her coffee and walking down the sidewalk, as I like to imagine her. And I thought that this would actually end up being my flat card, because better press cards are just so nice and lovely, really easy to craft with. That's why I like them a lot. And for something like this, I feel like you don't really need too much more than her plus a sentiment. And I kind of was on a kick with my media supplies, so I brought out something else that I have that I don't use enough of, which are my Tim Holtz. Actually, we were talking about this just the other day on our Crafty Fun with Friends live episode, and I forget the context where it came up, but it made me think of these watercolor crayons, and so I brought them out to play with. And they're so easy. They're super pigmented, so the payload you get off of these is really great. Similar to the pastels, watercolor is just a fast way to get a lot of color done. And even though I am coloring onto the 100% cotton paper, it does take water pretty well. So I don't feel like I have to be super conservative with my use of water. So I'm using the water just to maybe get some shading in. So you can see with her dress, I left it more diluted, more watered down for a lighter blue effect, and then towards the left hand side I just used a little bit less water, and I did throw in an extra a slightly darker shade of blue. And the skin tone, I didn't really have a darker skin tone, so I couldn't really add some shadow there. So when you have limited colors, one way to kind of get a light versus a shadow is just water it down more, and you get like a lighter image. I got a couple of accidental splatters of red as I was picking up color off of the crayon. You kind of have to be careful, by the way, if you are going to take a wet paintbrush directly to your crayon, because you don't want to waterlog your crayon. And so if you're worried about that, you might prefer to just scribble a little bit of the pigment onto like a palette and then water it down on there. But as I was trying to pick up some color off of that red crayon, I accidentally flicked some red. So then I just intentionally flicked more red splatter and went with it. So because I did that, and because red is such a strong color, I decided I'm really just going to embrace red as the highlight color. So I got some very lovely bright red solid color cardstock. I'm going to lay that down as a first layer, and then I'm going to pop this panel up, which I already cut down to 3 3/4 by 5, like 3 3/4 by 5. And I'm going to use my Pear Blossom press. This is the A7 Cardmaker's T-square ruler, and I'm using the A7 size one even though I'm making an A2 card. But the reason I used it is because it's got the jig for getting a perfect 1/4 inch border when you go to line up your panels. So that's how I got that really perfect border. And from there, the last step is to add a sentiment. And I actually thought that maybe I would use one of the sentiments that I glimmered, and I'll show it later, but I actually took the Better Press plate that has, I think it's like 4 sentiments on there, and it's a single plate. And instead of better pressing out the sentiments, I actually glimmered, hot foiled those sentiments. And I thought I was going to use a foiled sentiment, but in the end I decided to stamp out a sentiment instead. And I really like having the coordinated dies. So both in the case of the stamp sentiments that you get with that club kit, there's also sentiments in the Better Press club, and as well there's sentiments in the Glimmer of the Month as well, and all of them have coordinating dies to cut out the sentiment. So I really love that. So I'm gonna use in this case for this card I used a stamped sentiment, which I think they all, if I look real quickly, I think they all have that really nice combination of like different fonts. So there would be like a, in this case, it's got like an all caps sans serif font. And then I really love that the second line is a very scripty handwriting kind of cursive font. So that's a really nice touch. I really like that a lot. And I think all of the sentiments across the club kits, that's it is actually kind of nice. I feel like, come to think of it, we got a lot of sentiments this month across all of the clubs, because your Glimmer plate has it, your Better Press plate has it, and then of course the Clear Stamp of the Month has it as well. All right, so that's it for this card. Just used a little bit of 3D glue gel to add some lift to the sentiment, and that wraps up my layered card. Okay, so with my interactive card, I wanted to use, this is the large die of the month, and it's really the large die of the month, and I feel the, actually, you know what? I have to compare, because the 3D embossing folder, it looks a lot like, but I think it's a smaller pattern. It looks a lot like another 3D embossing folder that has that same pincushion pattern to it. And I think it's called Tufted. Yeah, Tufted is the name of that other one. This has a very similar feel to it, and just looking at it, I kind of feel like maybe it's smaller, which works out really nicely, because what I'm going to use it for is to give that tufted look to this purse. So this kind of angled, it just cuts 2 edges. That is actually meant to, and you could probably use it in a lot of different ways, but it's meant to be sort of the top, like, corner section of a purse. But with this tufted 3D embossing folder, you could kind of almost like maybe use it as the back, seat of something, or really anything. You can kind of let your imagination go wild, since it is such a simple, edging, essentially. But the idea is that this is going to be the corner of a purse. And so you've got there are just so many dies for details. in this the large die of the month, because you can really adorn and create a lot of different looks to your purse. So for example, there's different straps that I only use like a couple of different of the different options, but you could use like a more chain kind of shoulder strap. You could use different little sort of panels that attach the strap to the body of the purse. There's different shapes of those. You can use different shapes for clasps and whatnot, and buckles and all sorts of things. It's really, they all have like the pieces that are, I guess, kind of would be meant for like fabrics or materials, all have a really nice stitching detail to them. So for me, I used white as the color cardstock. It's actually not just white. It's one of the specialty treasured cardstocks by Spellbinders that has that really kind of lovely iridescent almost like a very glittery look to it. Not iridescent, but it's more like a glittery look. And actually more of a shimmer, I guess, so more of a pearlescent, but it's really lovely. I think it just makes it all look very, very chic, very classy. And besides all of their different options for like clasps and hardware and straps, you also have a bunch of different really cute options for little charms and whatnot that you can dangle off of the straps. And so the one that I thought that was super adorable is this little teddy bear. So I'm gonna use the little teddy bear, but your other options include there's a die, so you could do like a pair of dice. There's a little coin purse, which is darling. There are some cherries that you can use. There's like a little lock, which I'll use on this purse, but not as a charm. And so that's just super, super cute. So if you saw, I don't know how long it's been, but maybe it's only been like a week or so now. But Spellbinders did send me the Scout machine, which is their mini die cutting machine, and I have to say, so far I'm loving it. When I found out that I would be getting it, I did buy the scrapbook.com magic mat for it, and super love it for that, because that's going to really extend the life of the cutting plates. And that way, hopefully, I'll never really have to buy new plates, because the magic mat, and I got the new magnetic one too, which I also really love. It's it's been out for like a little while now, the magnetic version, but for the other machines that I have, I actually don't use a magic mat, and so I haven't had a real need to buy the magnetic magic mat until now. Now that I have the Scout, and if you're not familiar, the magic mat is a self-healing cutting mat, and it's been designed so that it's actually pretty close to the same thickness of a traditional cutting plate for your die cutting machines. And so the idea is that it's actually meant to substitute for one of your cutting plates, namely the cutting plate that you cut into, because the magic mat is self-healing. It lasts longer. It might still warp on you. You might get some changes to, bumpiness or whatever, but there are really super easy ways to flatten it back out. You just heat it up with your heat gun and it'll flatten. Or if you live in a sunny area, you can also just kind of leave it in the sun. Now, this is super cool. So this, what I'm using is the new Pear Blossom Press Snap and Slide. It's actually two pieces, and you can use it to and put it through a slider track, which is probably how it's traditionally meant to be used. But I'm just going to actually use it as a way to. You could also, I guess, you could use this sort of as a way to create like a dancing style card. But what I'm gonna do is dangle my little teddy bear charm on this snap and slide mechanism, and so it'll just give me a way to make this be a little bit interactive. So I've just got some black thread, and I looped it right through so that it's hanging on top of the snap and slide. And then I just tied a really simple knot, and I'm gonna glue my teddy bear to this to this bit of string, or black twine really. And that's it. This is like the easiest interactive mechanism, and there are dies in the large die of the month where it's actually, if you cut it out, it looks like this. It looks like it could be thread that you, or cording, that would be a part of a real charm that you might hang off of your bag. And so I thought this would be super cute. So instead of like a paper version that just suggests it, this is actual black thread, or cording, I guess. And then I'm just going to secure it really well between two die cuts of the bear's body. And so there that is. I think it's just super cute. It does hang a little bit, technically, if you hold it upright, it does hang a little bit below the card, but that's gonna be totally fine, because if you go to ship this, you can always, because it's just hanging off of that snap and slide, you can always just kind of nudge it where you need to nudge it to fit it into the envelope. So just a couple last little details I'm gonna add. This would be, I guess, sort of, like that strap that you might hook over to the front and have like a little bit of a locking mechanism to kind of secure the contents of your purse. So there's like a bunch of little different die cuts that you can use as just hardware for your purse, and so I just added a cute little lock. And then the last thing I'll add is one of those glimmered sentiments. So as I mentioned, the glimmered sentiments are actually from the Better Press plate. And it's one of those sentiment sets where there's one plate that gives you, 4 or 5 sentiments, and then one die that cuts them all out at the same time. So I really, really love that whole kind of one and done idea, because it just makes it so easy to just get a lot of different options. One of the things that I wanted to try out, because the other new to my craft room is die cutting machine, is the Sizzix 6-inch Big Shot, which they just updated, and I'm really happy to say that better pressing works great. And then here I'm using it to do some glimmering. So glimmering with an actual glimmer plate works great. And glimmering, as I mentioned before, with the Better Press plate, also great. No issues at all. No need to do any fancy or different shimming or anything. So that's a huge thumbs up for me, because I think if I were to, I really want to be able to recommend the Big Shot, but if it didn't work with these other tools of mine, the Glimmer for hot foiling and the Better Press for letter pressing, I would have had a really hard time recommending the Big Shot. But I thankfully don't have that problem because it works perfectly. And there's no extra, nothing tricky about it. You would use it in the exact same ways that you would pass this through the platinum machine. Nothing extra or additional needed. And it glimmered perfectly. Both things glimmered perfectly. And even glimmering the negative, the leftover foil. So that's how I got the this version here, where it's gold in the background and white lettering. That was just the leftover remnant foil after I did the first foiling, and even that worked 100%, which it doesn't always for me, but it worked beautifully. So I'm really happy with the Big Shot. I'm gonna do probably a conclusion video on that because I've been using it as my only machine / primary machine for a while now, and so far I really really love it. I have some other observations, thoughts on it, but I'll save that for the other video, which I might also give some concluding thoughts on the Scout as well, because again, I've been trying to use those two machines for my primary machines as I've been reviewing them, and no complaints so far. Okay, so now to the actual I don't even know what I would call this particular pop-up card. It's kind of like a platform pop-up, but it's not a platform like you would normally see it as a stage. It's actually kind of it's like making a stage, but instead of being the flooring of the stage, it's more the what you're looking at, and so it's I don't know that I know for sure I've never made one like this, but I don't know that I've ever seen a card like this either. But the mechanism is actually not that unfamiliar. All the same though, I wasn't 100% sure about I had like a gut instinct on the size for everything, but I wasn't 100% sure. So whenever I'm not 100% sure, I just use some copy paper to make my mechanism and just a little bit of temporary tape, and then you can get the sizing of everything down and get everything sort of ironed out before you actually cut that mechanism piece out of your nice cardstock. And so that's one of the things that if you are ever kind of curious to just try something different, explore something that where you're kind of making it up as you go, like I am, just use some copy paper to start, which I'm glad I did, because I was thinking I would kind of create a little bit of a stage, but I had a particular arch die that I wanted to use, and it's a good thing that I actually did this the first time and found that my gut instincts on the sizing for where to score initially was wrong. And I will tell you the actual score lines, but I just wanted to talk through a little bit of the process, mostly because a lot of times I don't really know, I'm not following somebody else's instructions, so I don't really know what I'm doing. And this is how I figure out what to do. And I definitely encourage you to do the same, because once you know like the idea, the mechanism, after that, it's just a matter of maybe doing a little bit of a dry run, a little prototype, and kind of taking your measurements and making them kind of to fit whatever you need. So I did have to redo this a second time, because I found that I actually had a little bit more room than I initially thought I did, and that helps me, so that I can create like a larger opening, So this is kind of what it looks like when it's popped up. And that's going to be kind of the back. So it all folds down nice and flat, but then you open it up and you have this where I'll be cutting this arch into. Okay, so now here are the actual measurements. 8 5/8 of an inch by 4 1/4, and along that 8 5/8 inch edge, score at every 1/2 inch. So that's half, 1.5 up until 2 inches. Rotate 180 degrees and do those same score lines. So 3 score lines, half, 4 score lines, half, 1.5, 2. And so you just want to repeat those same score lines on both ends. So at the end of the day, it's actually pretty simple. So this blue cardstock measures 4 1/4 wide by 8 5/8 of an inch tall. And you want to score at every 1/2 inch up to the 2 inch score line. So score at half, 1.5, 2. Rotate 180 degrees and do those exact same score lines. Half, 1.5, 2. And then just fold and give all of those score lines a really nice burnish. Now, at the end of the day, this is probably still a little bit shorter than what it could have been, because when I close everything down flat, there's still about 1/4 of an inch or so, which I'm okay with leaving that little extra bit of wiggle room, because I just really wanted to make sure that everything fits inside the card. Okay, so now I need to cut out an aperture opening. And so I'm looking to line up the bottom of this die so that it's about 1/2 inch up. And then I nudged it a little bit more than 1/2 inch up, because when the all those 1/2 inch score lines that we scored, when that gets rolled up, you want to hide that 1/2 inch, and so you don't want to die cut below that 1/2 inch line there, and then that should hide the little box mechanism that we're making at the bottom there. And same with the top. So when I chose the die for this, I really wanted to make sure that top and bottom, when we roll those tabs over, that they are hidden by the frame that gets created after we cut this aperture opening out. So next, I am going to apply some adhesive to actually create our little, kind of like our platform box. I'm still going to call it platform box, because this is actually how you would make a platform pop up if you wanted to create like a stage, essentially, for creating a scene, a pop-up scene. It's been a while since I've made one of those, so maybe they'll get featured in my next flip video, just so that you can kind of see the difference. But what I'm gonna do is put some double-sided dry adhesive on the first tabs. So this is that first 1/2 inch section. And I want to also put a little squiggle of liquid adhesive, because I want to make sure that this is all permanent and well secured. And then I want to tuck that tab in so that it's basically right below the 2 inch score line that we scored, and then just fold this over and give it a really good burnish. So that gives us this, where we kind of have that aperture opening, that frame, and then we have the little boxes on either end. And that's how we're gonna have all of that dimension when you open the card and it kind of pops up. Now, before I get a little bit too much further along with the pop-up, I do like to at least get the front of my card sorted out so that while everything is still nice and flat, I can burnish, I can get the layers attached, and there's no kind of unevenness on the inside because if you remember from the beginning where I showed like that quick look at all of the cards, there's going to be little fun little characters kind of dangling on the inside. And so I always like to try to give everything as good of a burnish as I can. And so it's better if you can do that while everything is nice and flat. So what I'm crafting with is the small die of the month, and it's it's so cute, this small die. It's got a lot of different kind of brunch foods, breakfast foods. So you've got a waffle, which if you didn't use the waffle pattern could also be I think toast on its own. You could just do toast. There's bacon, there's a little champagne glass, and then there's a sunny side up egg. That's how I like my eggs, sunny side up. And this die does have some sentiments also. So there's like a wavy banner sentiment, and you get 3 sentiment plates also. But I'm gonna use the little champagne and some gold foil cardstock, which I know I'm gonna surprise a lot of people, maybe upset some people, but I'm actually not going to gut the center of the gold foil cardstock. And I know that's probably unexpected, but I have a lot of this gold foil cardstock for one. And second, I kind of want to leave it full because it just really helps with adding some weight and kind of some heft to this card, which then keeps everything on the inside nice and stable as well. And this card is going to be a real, like, twist because it looks so chic on the outside. And so what I was going for, as I was thinking about just in my head brainstorming ideas for this flip, I don't know why, but when I saw these fun little characters, breakfast food characters, I was thinking of them as being puppets, like marionette puppets. So that idea just really stuck in my brain, and I was trying to figure out how you can create a pop-up where these little characters are like marionettes on a stage, on a in a play or something. And so that's sort of the idea that I ran with, and I always just like things to be a little bit, especially with a pop-up card, a little bit unexpected as a surprise. And so the front of this card feels very one way, like really with all the gold and the simplicity of it. It just feels really kind of classy almost. But it's interesting, you get a hint of something cutesy and fun going on because the champagne has the little emoji face in it. And then you open it up, and then there's like all of these brunch time characters dancing on the stage. So I think it's just I'm very amused by it all. So now I'm gonna add some arms and some legs to these characters, and I did die cut them out of solid color cardstock, but then I did a little bit of inking just to give them a little bit of depth and a little bit of dimension to them. Now, even though I knew where I was headed with this, I kind of forgot to do one step. So I as I mentioned, I want this to kind of be like a marionette. And so my idea was always that I would be dangling the these characters from the top, and that's why I kind of eventually figured out that turning this platform on its head a little bit would be the perfect way, because then I can poke a little hole through this our little pop-up mechanism, and then run some invisible thread through it. Now I'm knotting this thread like 5, 6, 7 times to create a really large knot that's bigger than the hole that I poked through. The hole I kept very, very minimal, so that because you don't want it to be so large, you're gonna end up having to make like a huge knot. Now, if you had planned in advance, what you could have done is before you glued that mechanism, you could have poked your hole while everything was flat, and then that would have given you the opportunity to actually tape down your thread and secure it that way. But this is going to be just as secure. Just had to take a little bit of extra time to not put some knots in this thread. So it's not the end of the world if you end up doing it the way that I did it. And then I'm just gonna secure it really well behind my characters that I want to be sort of the marionette puppets. And I before it's so cute. It worked out really, really perfectly. So I do have a second die cut of just the plain waffle. And so I'm going to use, again, a combination of double-sided dry adhesive and some liquid adhesive to really make sure that thread is not going anywhere. And it does clean up the back of these characters, which once it's in the card, yes, it can still flip, but really if you're just doing a side-to-side motion to have them move, it's not going to completely rotate around to the back. So you may see it at some point, but it's not like a spinner where you will definitely see it. So I'm just going to poke a second hole for my second character, because the waffles are going to be dancing with the bacon. And so again, I'm just aiming to, the pokey tool is great for this because you can I just do like a, not a lot of pressure, a little twisting motion. And it's good because the pokey tool is like tapered. And so you just kind of, if you want a bigger hole, you just push it in further, but you can kind of control, the size of the hole that you're creating. And I'm just going to do the same thing on this one too. So I just fed the invisible thread through. And then I am going to give it a lot of knots, like 5 or 6. Probably that's way more than I actually really need. But in case it gets like snagged on something or something, if there's like just a little bit of extra tension, or it gets, pulled on just a little extra hard, I just want it to be super secure, because if it gets pulled out, there's really nothing you can really do to put it back in. So I'm gonna just take that extra precaution. But what I would really recommend is, before you glue that little box pop-up portion at the top, while it's still flat, just poke your hole then. And then you can actually glue the thread down or tape it down, and have it be secured that way. And you could even still do the knots if you really wanted, and just leave a little bit of extra thread and tape that down, so you can have double security even. But I think this will work just fine, in particular because this might be a card that I keep for myself. I just think it's lots of fun. And then I'm going to do the same thing, where I'm going to position this character where I want. And then I am going to tape it down. Now, it gets a little bit challenging to really position this, because I want to see how it lands relative to the waffle. And one of the things I tried to do was the I actually meant to do this in the reverse, but one of the holes I poked, it was a little bit closer to the front of the aperture opening, and the other hole that I punched or poked was a little bit closer to the back. And that way, when these two characters swing back and forth, they aren't swinging on the same plane, as it were, because one is actually going to be behind the other one. Now, this doesn't mean that they're never going to get tangled up. They still could get a little bit tangled up, but at least you're setting it up so that if it's hanging straight, then one is very clearly behind and the other one's very clearly in front. And so if it's just swinging like just left to right, then they should be able to slide past one another. Now, I got it a little bit reverse. What I wanted was the bacon to be in front, and I wanted the waffle to be behind. But I ended up with the reverse of that. And it doesn't really matter. It's just whatever story you think you're telling with this with this little scene. And so I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to have a combination of double-sided dry adhesive and a squiggle of liquid adhesive. And you won't see me do it on camera, but I'm going to attach another bacon to the back. Now here is where I lost some pretty critical footage. I'm not too sure what happened with the file, but this is a dramatic reenactment of my first time doing this. So I've got the mechanism here. You'll notice it's a different shape because this is a reenactment. But basically, with the bottom of your little popcorn pop-up here, you want to actually adhere one of those 1/2 inch tabs to the bottom of the card. So on the bottom, basically, it's the section that is between 1.5 inches to 2 inches. That's the section that I'm putting adhesive here. And so the fold here is at the 1.5 inch line that we originally scored. And that I just put it right up against the fold of our card, but I don't want to cross over. So just right up to it. And that way you can still easily fold your card down and it's nice and flat. There isn't extra adhesive or bulk right where that fold is. And so just give that a really good burnish with your bone folder. And then now what we want to do is there are 2 little tabs or sections that need to get glued to essentially, the front of our card, the back of the front of the card. And so what you want to do is you want to fold your little boxes inwards. So they both fold sort of towards the center of the card. And again, it's just this 1/2 inch glue tab that gets glued. So technically, if you're looking at this, it's the section that is between 1.5 inches and the 1 inch line. And those are the two strips of adhesive that I'm pulling off. And I'm going to run a bead of liquid adhesive just right over even the double-sided dry adhesive. It's fine. The dry adhesive is really great. It gives you like an instant grab. And I'm just going to fold my front of the card right on top of this so that it lands exactly where it needs to land. And when you open it up, it's going to kind of spring open and have that really nice dimension and create that space. It's not a lot of space, but it's 1/2 inch is plenty to work with, where you can put your characters, and that's where the waffle and the bacon are on the original card. So and by the way, I don't think I mentioned it before, but this blue cardstock is the Spellbinders colored cardstock, so it's 100 pound. It's pretty thick stuff, which is exactly what I wanted for a card like this, because it needs to have, you know, that structure, but that does make this a little bit bulky of a card. And so I did do some final decorating and wrapped up that card. Sorry for the lost footage. But here's a final look at my 4 cards. This is my flat card, which features the clear stamp of the month and a little bit of chalk pastel and color pencil coloring. Next up, I have my layered card, which features the Better Press of the month and a sentiment from the clear stamp of the month. I did some really quick watercoloring, had a little oopsies of a red splatter, and then I just embraced it and added some more red splatter to make it intentional. And it's always really nice to make layered cards like these because that added dimension. It's not a lot. It's just my low profile foam and maybe some 3D glue gel, but it does add a little something extra. This is my interactive card, and it features a 3D embossing folder. That's a foiled, but it's from the Better Press Club, and the main die set is the large die of the month. I'm also featuring the Pear Blossom Press Snap and Slide for what I'm using to dangle this little teddy bear charm off of. Now, because my sentiment has a little bit of thickness to it, it does act as a little bit of a stopper for the teddy bear, but it's still super cute. You do need to add a lot of foam to match the thickness of the Snap and Slide, but that's a fun one. It's kind of darling. And then my last card is my pop-up card, and I gotta say, I had a lot of fun giggling to myself as I was making this. So on the front, we have the Glimmer of the month, that's the background, and a foiled Better Press. And then the large die of the month is where that emoji champagne glass is. You open this up and you get some more emoji brunch characters. We've got waffle and bacon, and kind of our MC for this show is the sunny side up egg. It's something that's kind of unexpected because the front of the card just looks so like posh and classic and full of like glitz and glam, and then you open it up and you see these wacky emoji French characters putting on a show. I hope you enjoyed my flip video. Let me know in the comments below if you have a favorite card among these, and if you happen to make any of my cards, or you're inspired to recreate any of these or give your own special flair to them, do tag me at lvhandcrafted because I love seeing what you make. Thank you so much for checking out my video. Links to everything will be in the description box below, and until next time, happy crafting and have a fabulous day. Bye.